Good evening, everyone. This is the latest episode of Let Us Talk Live. Tonight we have four fantastic guests on. It's the first time we're going to hear from four women on the show tonight. Hopefully, obviously, it will be going on a little bit longer and we hear some different experiences and their thoughts on mental health in general. It's good to hear a different side of views, and obviously women may have a different point of view or views on mental health than what men do. So it's good to open up and hear a different view. So I'm just waiting for a few other people to come in. As always, everyone is welcome to ask questions. All questions are welcome, and hopefully the guest or myself can answer them along the way. On Thursday, I'm looking to confirm a guest either tonight or tomorrow. So I'll announce that either tomorrow, as I say, or tonight for Thursday's special. If you want to watch back tonight's or any of the others, you can head over to mental health hashtag Let Us Talk on YouTube, and you can have a look at that as well. Let me just see if I flip round. Let me just see what people are in here. Welcome to you all. Thank you for your support along the way as well. Let me just see. One second. Okay. I'll get the now. Hello. Good evening.
Hi, Jamie.
Hiya. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm okay. As well. So, yeah, for the people what don't know you, let them know who you are, and what you do.
Okay, my name's Caroline McRoyal. I'm a consultant working with sports clubs and organisations, really trying to help them develop and grow. So whether that's looking after funding, facility development, or just their general strategic development. Most known for working in football, and I was previously the chief executive of Surrey County Football Association.
Okay, there we go. So yeah, as we say, most of the guests what come on here obviously are from a football background. It's a little bit different tonight, which I'm really happy about. Obviously, having four women's perspective on mental health as well. Obviously, throughout the weeks we've had a male perspective through either football or in the world in general. So the first question I'll ask for you, Caroline, what does mental health mean to you?
I think my views on mental health has changed over the last 4 or 5 years, and that's mainly through sort of education. I always used to think of mental health as the bad thing, when people are ill, when they've got anxiety or depression or on medication. But having done a recent course with mental health first aid, I understood that it's more of a continuum that, everybody has mental health. It's just whether they've got good mental health or whether they've got poor mental health, and also that depending on the journeys that you're going through or what's happening in your life, that your mental health can be affected along the way.
Yeah. Um, Obviously, touching on it with the world today, obviously, we've just coming out of hopefully, and not going back into it, but COVID-19. Do you feel a lot of people's mental health would have struggled throughout, obviously, the time we was in lockdown?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really difficult because everyone will have had a different experience of this period. Some people will actually have been working the entire time through it if they were with the NHS or a key worker. So their experience will be, that they've been helping, but obviously tired and exhausted. And then there's others where potentially they've been out of work, they've been furloughed, or they may not have had any support through the government. And for them, it's going to be difficult. You've also got obviously those people that have been shielded, and my mum is one of those actually. So for her, it's been really frustrating because she wants to be able to go out and do stuff, and she can't. She's stuck in the house. She's limited on what she can do, and it's only now that she's actually allowed to go outside. So it's difficult, and I think you have to try and understand everybody's perspective, and not everyone's going to have the same experience, and it's only by talking to people you get to understand what they've been through and how they feel about this sort of stuff. And you've also got obviously the anxiety of when you are going out, when you're doing your shopping, or you're visiting, you're going to the pub, or you're even starting to do football coaching, is that anxiety of making sure you're cleaning everything, that you're not causing a risk to anyone, that there's the potential of it spreading, so it is a really difficult time, and I think everybody just needs to be a bit more aware of how other people might be feeling.
I touched on it with a few of the other guests. In general, obviously, I feel like it's, from my point of view, and a lot of the guests have obviously been male, apart from tonight. From their perspective, they feel like it was a lot harder for a male to open up, especially in a football world. Maybe, do you feel that is the case, or do you feel it is maybe a stereotype on men are less likely to open up than women?
I think there's two sort of angles to look at it. I think it's definitely harder for men to show their emotions in general, and to talk about things like mental health, or to be emotional. But I think, and obviously it's seen as easier for women, but then if you put the context of women in a male-dominated environment, such as myself and the guests you've got on tonight, where you're trying to prove yourself in that area, you don't want to be seen as weak, you don't want to show your emotions, so you're trying to be strong and tough all the time. So it can be just as hard for women to talk about things and show their emotions as well, particularly if they're working in a male-dominated area.
Yeah. Do you feel, from working obviously in the industry, as you touched on a second ago, it's hard for a woman maybe to open up? Do you feel that's become more easier over the years, or do you feel it's become harder maybe, with maybe the FA not, or they've pushed women's football forward more, but do you feel it's harder, or is it easier now, do you feel, to speak up about mental health, or if somebody's struggling with mental health?
I think it's definitely becoming easier. I think there's a lot more awareness about it now. Obviously, the FA have been doing a big campaign as well with their Heads Together programme. So I think it's definitely a nicer environment, or an easier environment to talk about it, and more people are promoting like mental health weeks of action and things like that. But I think there's still a lot more that can be done. I think sort of businesses and directors of clubs, or chairmen of clubs, need to make it a comfortable environment to talk about all year round, not just the week or the month that we all focus on around Mental Health Awareness Week. So there's still more to be done.
Yeah, I touched on it in the last couple of weeks with somebody mentioned, actually, and it was a good point, that they done a big campaign about obviously gay footballers coming out, and it was a sustained campaign. It wasn't just here and there, like, for, as you say, for maybe a week or 2 weeks, just to put it, maybe in a sense, tick boxes that it's been done, but it was actually a sustained campaign, and it opened people's eyes up for that. Do you feel something like that should be done more in women's football, and obviously men's football in general, from the top to the bottom?
Yeah, I think it needs to be sort of brought into the everyday language. So I think, Keith Bowen has mentioned it before, about it needs to be part of the coaching courses, so anybody that's coming along and doing the level 1 and level 2, are taught and educated about mental health, and the more that we, I suppose, make that easier to talk about, then the more it's going to help. So you almost want, where you've got your welfare officers at every club because of safeguarding, you also almost want a mental health ambassador at every club, or a mental health first aider, so that people know that there's someone they can go to talk, and that will be confidential to a certain point.
Do you feel, obviously, that's to do with funding or money, etc., to go on courses to a certain degree? Do you feel, especially maybe in the lower levels, that people are going to struggle with money now, but obviously I think you agree, and I agree, and other people have agreed with it that it should be within majority of clubs. But do you feel the government or the FA should fund it a little bit more to open their eyes up?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they can insert it into courses, that's a relatively, I would imagine, easy thing that they could do. You know, it wouldn't take a lot of time and it shouldn't detract too much from the current course material.
Mm,
You know, they can certainly promote it through the county FAs. They can encourage clubs that are getting the charter standard criteria, for example, to make sure that they have a mental health ambassador, or you know that they have a policy or a procedure around how they deal with mental health as well.
mm,
So there are things that can be done without it being overly expensive, you know, and there are a lot of resources online that you can, you know, you just simply almost like putting a notice board up within your club of places that people can go if they need to talk to someone, you know, will just help,
mm,
because players will walk past that, and if they are struggling, you know, they can see some resources there. They may not want to talk to anyone at the club, but, you know, they could take a photo, take the number, and then, you know, they've got access to that information. And, you know, whilst we all think that there's a lot of information out there and it should be easy enough for people to get support, sometimes you don't think about it unless it's sort of right in front of your eyes, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. Um, Core Sports have said key for me is repair of a sound message, but we have to vary the activity. Otherwise, we run the risk of losing impact. What for Caroline has been the most effective, training or awareness?
So for me, I think there's two courses that I've done sort of over the last year or so. One is the mental health first aid, which was a full 1 day course, and that was
Yeah.
really more for sort of employers to have an ambassador at their organisation. Now that isn't sort of, I suppose, the cheapest course around, but
Mm,
another course that is really easy to access. It's online. It's only about 20 minutes. Is through the Zero Suicide Alliance, which is about having that conversation with somebody that you think may be a suicide risk.
mm,
And you know, that's a really difficult subject for people to talk about, and it is really hard. But just by going through the course, you can see how little things could make a difference to somebody. And by
mm,
actually talking to somebody about it, if you think they may be at risk, or even if you're not sure, can
mm,
actually help them, because sometimes they don't know how to talk to people, and then they sort of, you know, go further away. So and that's a free course, you know. So, and it's 20 minutes, which is not a lot of time.
mm.
And as I said, it's free, it's online. So I'd encourage everybody to go and have a look at that.
You touched on obviously the mental health in first aid. That's for a lot of people, obviously, as you say, out of workspace or in general, to have somebody in there. What else do you feel in maybe education wise could be put in place to help maybe younger people to understand mental health, or if they're struggling with mental health to at a younger age, to catch it earlier maybe, or even to help the stress of the workload and the staff people in general?
I think for sort of younger people, it's about trying to normalize that conversation and understanding that it is okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to be frustrated about stuff, you know, and not everybody has a good day every day. I think the more people that are aware of that, the more, you know, they feel they can open up if they are having a bad day, or something else has happened in their life. And I think that's the trouble, is that people put on this facade that you don't necessarily know what's going on behind.
Mm,
Um, so it's encouraging that communication. So if you know, if you're working with younger players, it's taking the time to talk to them and find out how they are before you sort of launch into coaching sessions and things like that.
yeah. From maybe from not the, or even from the top downwards. I spoke to a friend of mine who is been going into academies and working with academy players from the top. He said it's not as much incorporated in obviously non-league and grassroots because of maybe, as I touched on, funding or money, etc. Um, but do you feel managers now, or has it got better, managers and coaches, to think about players' mental strain? Or do you feel they're still worried about results and the physical performance? Because I think it's a hand in hand for me now, that if somebody's struggling with something, you're not going to get the best performance out of them.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the individual managers and their background and what they've been through and how educated they are as well, because you've still got a lot of managers in non-league football that haven't even got any coaching qualifications, you know. So, you know, but those that have been through the coaching pathway, you know, will know about the four corner model and will know about the importance of the social and psychological aspects, you know, not just the skill and the development. So I think it is getting better because, you know, generally everybody is getting more educated, but there will still be those out there that just, you know, won't really have a clue and will, as you say, just be interested in those results and nothing else. And I suppose that's where you would hope that the players would, you know, if they see that environment and they're not happy with it, would feel comfortable enough to leave and move clubs, or perhaps, you know, challenge that environment. But it would be difficult, obviously.
Yeah. So Frankie agreed. Doing that with young kids at school can build a great relationship between the kids themselves and the kids and adults for it to be okay to talk about your feelings. Well, obviously that was touching on the last question beforehand. Yeah, I feel that obviously relationships have got to be built, and that goes on to my next question. I feel like a lot of people have turned around and said their perspective is finding the right person to talk to. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there'll be some people that you'll be happy to open up about, open up with, and there'll be some people that you won't. And for some people, that will be a complete stranger. You know, it may be through an online forum, um, or someone that's not so close to them. Whereas others, you know, they'll find it easier to talk to someone that is very close to them, like, you know, a husband or a family member. And I think that's just going to depend on the individual person and how they feel about their relationships and that person. I mean, I think we'd all hope that someone close to us would feel able to come and talk to us, but sometimes it can be harder to talk to someone you're really close to about how you're feeling without feeling that you might be judged. So sometimes it's easier to do someone that's a little bit more distant from you.
Yeah. Last question before I move on to the next guest, Caroline. But thank you for coming, obviously, on. What do you feel going forward we can all do helping somebody who's struggling with mental health? If you are struggling with mental health as well, what you feel they should do if they can, and also just your overall views, obviously, on mental health, and then add whatever you want to say into that.
That's a lot of questions, Jamie.
I know. Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. I think overall, you know, if you are struggling personally, I would say, you know, you're not alone. There are millions others out there that are struggling, and you may not even know from just looking at them or talking to them on a day-to-day basis. And it's trying to find that person that you can talk to, or an online forum that you can feel comfortable sharing with. If you're supporting someone with mental health, sometimes that can be just as hard because you want to support them, you want to help them, but you know, you don't actually know how, you know, exactly what they're going through, and that can be hard. So it's about, I would say, for that person, then it's about education, it's about finding out as much as you can, and also about, you know, finding other people that are supporting people through mental health and actually sharing with them. And I mean, and overall, it's just about trying to make everybody more comfortable to talk about mental health. And shows like this, you know, is a prime example of what we should be doing. We should be promoting, you know, let's talk about mental health.
Cheers. Thank you very much. I know that you wanted to say, obviously, if anyone it was struggling and everything like that, obviously, if they're happy to and they feel they can talk to you or talk to me or talk to whoever, they can contact either of us or any of the other guests to just have a chat. So, don't know if you want to put out, obviously, your handles. That's up to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fine. So it's Caroline McRoyal on Instagram, or Cal McRoyal, that's CAL McRoyal on Twitter. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Or you can have a look at my details on my website, which is www.carolinemcroyalconsulting.com.
Okay, cheers. Thank you very much for that, Caroline. Core Sports said you got to love Caroline McRoyal. Great guest and great interview.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much. We'll catch up soon. Thank you very much for that.
Cheers.
So that was Caroline McRoyal. Core Sports is also on here, and they've I'm going to say that they're open for it. So always happy to chat as well. and their number is 073 768 71514. I'm putting that up there obviously because when I upload it onto YouTube, these comments don't come on there, so that's why. So I'll just repeat the number for Core Sports. Happy to talk for anyone what's struggling. 073 768 71514. And again, thank you very much, Caroline, for coming on. It was a great chat and very insightful from my first guest. So I'll go on to my next guest. Next guest. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello. You all right?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. So, for the ones that don't know you in here, let them know who you are and what you do.
Firstly, sorry about the eyes. The hay fever today has been ridiculous. Yeah, so I don't really know how to put into what do I actually do, but within football, it's only been recent, the last 3-ish years, that I've been working closely with the managers, and I do physio, for men's football, non-league.
Okay, so obviously the last three guests, their insight will be a little bit different from other people because
Yeah.
obviously you're all physios, different various clubs. So, and also obviously I know that Ems later on wants to touch on obviously her story, as well. So from your point of view, first obviously question is what is mental health to you?
I've been on a bit of a mental health journey myself. And I think mental health is a bit like it's the part of your well-being that you don't see, that you kind of don't know that it's not right till it's gone wrong sometimes. And I think that's the thing that people necessarily aren't aware of, that you eat healthy, you exercise on a daily basis, do all the right things to keep yourself physically healthy, but the stuff that you don't necessarily see, you kind of neglect it. Yeah.
That's fair. That's a good obviously insight into it. Yeah, 100%. It's something you can't see really, and you don't know what's going on in someone's head. Just
Yeah.
before we move on, I'm just going to put Caroline's website out there. So it's www.caroline consulting.com as well for her. Obviously, Ali's on here as well. She's saying a hashtag team physio. So
Love that.
yeah. So from your point of view, obviously in a changing room, which obviously you're with a male football team,
Yeah.
there's a lot of big characters as we know in that dressing room. Do you
Yeah.
feel sometimes it could be a front and people are struggling maybe, but they don't want to open up?
Um,
Just from your perspective, it doesn't mean anything is, but it might from your perspective.
I think I have a few opinions on it. As a perspective, I think the team that we're at, for example, a lot of those guys have known each other for a very long time. They've been around each other for a very long time. They've played football together for a very long time, and they've known each other for years. So I think in that aspect, I think they're actually very aware of each other, and they actually, I wouldn't say consider, but they're aware of like certain people's behaviours or what makes them react the way they do. So they're very aware about each other's mental state. Now, when you start to then bring maybe new members into that team and things like that, I think that's where you're going to find things that people either kind of go into their shell or they become loud and they become the person that they're not really, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think it can depend on environment, but again, team sports, I personally like to think it helps that side of things, like knowing you've got a group of people around you, because as we all know, football is not the nicest game at times, so to know that you've got that group of people around you, I think is really good for mental health.
Yeah. On the other side of it, I feel from my point of view as well, and it'd be interesting to hear yours. It can be, as you say, it can be your get out, but it also can be your negatives away, like if you've had a bad performance or somebody's on your back or
Mm.
and everything like that, and then you've got problems at home or in general, it could just mount up. So I feel like football to a certain degree can be the love and the get out, but it also could be a negative side of it as well.
Yeah.
Overall.
I think if you've got stuff going on outside of football, it can be kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Like things in that environment just could be just the one thing that it just finishes you for the day type thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite high pressure, to be honest.
I feel with us, it's not a problem because obviously with Enyo as manager and stuff like that, I think he's still in there. I don't know if he is, but he probably is. But for him, I feel like he understands players if they're struggling with things away from football, and
Hmm.
he can he can talk to them and he's there for them. Whereas
Yeah.
a lot of other managers, what I was saying with Caroline, what I may have been around or other people may have been around, is yeah, so
Yeah.
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 Um, um, I don't think they understand. Do you feel that they should educate themselves more so they get better performance from their players?
I definitely, what you said before about performance level and like mental health, I definitely think there is a correlation there. I think education is the one thing that we're kind of like lacking the most in terms of mental health. Um, and when I say education, it's not just understanding mental health and like how to behave towards it, how to understand. It's about how to understand it. So, understanding what affects individuals, what possibly could affect someone, how it again, because some managers they care about the performance. So really letting them understand that, you know what, um, it's not just the actual performance. It's not just them just turning up is the be all and end all of it. There's a lot more that goes on that does affect that type of thing. And I think having that understanding of what mental health actually is very important. Whether that comes from them, whether it
Mm,
comes from the club, whether it comes from the county, or it's coming from the FA, or wherever it's coming from. But I
mm,
do think it's something that education, there needs to be a lot more of it.
yeah. Um, Frankie Warren said, Enyo, great man manager, such an easy character, one of your own. Yeah, 100%. I agree with that, Frankie. Obviously, I've known him for years. Obviously, going up against him as well, like when Dulwich and Bromley, etc., and stuff like that when we was younger. Um, I feel even from then, it was like he understood a player. And I feel that is one of the main things where you have to understand the players, what you have in your club, to understand that they may be going through things and not going to perform every single week. And why are they not performing every single week? Is because they have problems away from football and they need to.
Yeah.
He is great at man managing in that, and I feel that's really good from him.
Yeah.
So N said, Frankie, my guy, thanks, mate. Hope you're well. I have to catch up soon. Yeah, no. Obviously, moving on to the next one. Do you feel there should be a push within non-league or football in general? I think it has to come from the top. My personal view, and then it will go all the way down. But in general, obviously, because we're in non-league, do you feel there's got to be a push to maybe have at least one person who's mental health trained in a club?
For me, again, something you said in the previous interview about having the who you decide to speak to.
Yeah.
I think having one person that's mentally with mental health training, I
Mm.
don't think is quite enough,
Yeah.
because the thing about mental health is, and this is where I think N's really good, is he looks at things from more than one perspective.
Mm.
Again, even someone that's had like mental health struggles,
Yeah.
you'll wake up one day and your perspective is completely different and you can only
100.
look at the negative. Then there'll be days that the focus is really on the positive. So I think it's really important within mental health to have a team. Having just one individual, personally, I think you're then limiting kind of perspective that you look at things.
Yeah.
So I really think it's important to educate a group, the whole management team, again, you'll know there's players you can speak to better, there's players N can speak to better, there's players that Rupert can speak to better, and so on, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that responsibility of looking after mental health is shared amongst a group of people, because yeah, whether you are the person that's struggling, you will feel that you can talk to certain people better. And whether you are the coach, you know what, you might think, I'm not the best person to approach somebody on that, but you know, somebody else in my coaching team is, and I think they should be able to deal with it. And I think, like I said, yeah, okay, maybe one person is in charge, but I think it should really be a shared responsibility.
Yeah, no, that's a great perspective from it. Obviously, again, I feel obviously again it's funding and money, etc., for everything, and that's what holds a lot of things back.
Yeah.
Saying that, now, do you feel the government or the FA should put in a lot more money, especially after COVID-19, to maybe help for that education?
Yeah, I definitely. It's hard to say who the funding should come from,
Yeah.
because it affects everyone. So then you go, yeah, government, but it is something that's. I think the sport of football in general is quite high pressured, whether you play in the Premiership or you play non-league. Like it is very high pressure. Especially, it's two different types of pressure. You think non-league, you live your everyday life. So on top of everyday life, you then start adding football pressures into it. It's
Yeah.
completely different. That, do you know what? That's something that professional footballers probably don't have to deal with. You
No.
know, they make so much money that half the stresses that the people in non-league face, they wouldn't understand it. So I think it's something that needs to come from different levels. And I think, especially after COVID, it's really hard to say that's something that the government could fund with everything going on. I think it's something that the FA could definitely do. I mean, you think back to like the whole thing with Morambo when he collapsed on the pitch, and then they started funding like defibrillators and stuff at
Yeah.
venues. Again, it's something that's been identified heavily within the sport. It's something that they should step up and kind of, you know, take some action against, I think.
Do you feel that as you just said, like one thing happened and they took action? Do you feel it? Listen, I don't want it to happen, but normally these things, what happen, if a bad thing happens, normally they act.
Yeah.
Do you feel that will be the case? That it will only be if one person, high profile, maybe within football, done something bad. Touch wood, it never happens. Trust me. But do you feel then they may push it?
The thing is, that unfortunately with most situations, you know, like in the world, I think it gets to the point until something bad happens, you don't go, right, okay, now it's time to kind of to take some action. But I think it's one of those things, if we all shout loud enough for a bit, I think people will take action. Like they have to take action towards it, you know, like before something drastic happens, especially because I think it's a topic, like you said before as well, that it's definitely being spoken about a lot more than it used to be. So I think if something bad is to happen now, that someone, like you said, God forbid, does do anything, that they actually don't have anybody to blame, because it's not like this has been something that people have been talking about just recently. It's been an ongoing thing. So
100%.
yeah.
Last question, George, and then I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
It's be the same question as what I say. What do you feel people can do going forward to help somebody maybe struggling with mental health? If you're struggling with mental health, what you feel they should do, and just your message overall.
um in terms of what I think people should do is make a more conscious effort to be empathetic towards other people. Um, just be aware that, because what you see isn't what you get. Underneath the, like, whatever exterior you see, it really might not be the same. Even if it's anger, tears, like people cry when they're upset, people cry when they're happy. You know, people when they're frustrated cry. Like there's different reasons for why people act the way they do, and people need to understand that a bit more, I think. Um, Again, I think education is a key thing, you know. Things like that I did at school, we did things like PSHE and those types of lessons, putting things like that a lot more into education. So do you know what, it is common knowledge how to like deal with someone that might be upset. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
education from from an early level. If you're struggling, it's a hard one. Again, I don't know if there's necessarily any blanket in like advice to give someone, because it is so different. But the fact that is, you're not alone. You're not alone in that what you're going through. You're not alone in the fact you have no one to talk to. And you're not alone in the fact there's nowhere to turn. Whether you look on the internet, whether you read a book, self-help books, you know, whether you talk to someone. One thing I found when I struggled, you know, talking to people and realizing, do you know what, like, I really thought I was in a really, really bad way, but there's people out there that have been through the same stuff as me, and it kind of makes you, if you don't talk to people, you kind of don't know where you're at in your level, if that makes sense. You could think in your head, if it's your own opinion, you could think you're actually like, no one compares to how I feel. But then you start to talk to people and you realize, actually, I'm not as bad as I think I am. So I think communication, even if it isn't about what your issue is, I think is a very good thing.
No, 100%. George, thank you very much. That's brilliant.
No
Thank you
worries.
very much for your views and obviously touching on a little bit of your experiences and what you was thinking, obviously, when you was going through a hard time as well. So thank
Yeah.
you very much for opening up. And we'll catch up, obviously, next week when we're back.
Yes. Yes. See you
Cheers.
soon.
See you
Take
soon.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Great interview, guys. Very proud to have both of you by my side every Saturday. And trust me, mate, like obviously you've been supporting through this the whole time. So thank you very much for that, mate. And we're looking forward to obviously the season ahead when it actually eventually happens. But yeah, and as Frankie said, man management with you is unbelievable. And thank you for that. I'll get on the next guest. Cheers, Caroline. Great interview. Thank you. Just waiting for it to connect. Here she is. You good?
How are you?
I'm okay. You?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. A long day at work, but glad to be here and talking now.
Cheers,
It's
Ali. Thank you very much for coming on, as I say to the others. For the ones that don't know you, obviously, let them know who you are and what you do.
it's really embarrassing doing this bit, isn't it? So I'm Anne, obviously, and I work at Cray Wanderers in the non-league setting as well as the SE Dons. You might have heard of them. I don't know. And
Maybe.
full time in the NHS as a specialist physio. So yeah, it's kind of me.
So yeah, just Georgia said thank you. Great opportunity to talk about something important. Cheers, George. Thanks for coming on.
Both girls have spoke brilliantly, can I just say as well. I'm nervous now.
So Ems is on after you, so she's got to follow all three of you. So
Yeah, it's a hard one. Save the best till last, though, eh?
yeah, well, I saved it because I think she's probably going to talk a little bit more.
You reckon?
knowing Ems.
I say nothing. I say nothing.
No, so Frankie Warren said my favourite physio. I don't know if the other physios will be very happy with that.
Frank, what, 9 odd years ago now, I think?
Yeah, at Fisher, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I'm saying that as well.
We're all getting there now.
I know.
So, Orange Ball Coaching said, great to get so many different perspectives on the topic. No, that's what we want, obviously. Ems is laughing, obviously, because of what I just said. But yeah, no, first question, obviously, it's the same as the others. What's mental health to you?
I think it'll be a similar tangent, really, Jamie, and I think it's a very wide area. I mean, my background is that I feel mental health is everything. It's good, it's bad, it's everything in between. I think the connotations currently are that when you say the words mental health, it's a bit negative, like it's a bad thing. But actually, I feel like mental health is actually a good and a bad thing. It can be positive, it can be negative, and most of the time, it's somewhere in between. So I think it kind of encompasses the whole area, really, of how well you are, your well-being, your fitness, everything, really.
Yeah, so Dina Addison, she is my physio. Nice family.
The best chefs ever is Dino. He's amazing.
No, I've been to his restaurant once before as well. Yeah, no, he was really good. overall, obviously, as you say, a lot of people have said mental health can't be seen. Obviously, it can't be
Mm.
seen. You don't know what's going on in anyone's head. Um, but before it gets to a trigger which tips you over, and obviously it could go into a bad time.
Mm.
What do you feel that somebody with mental health, who's going through that, should do first of all,
It's
if
a
they
really,
can?
a really massive question. So I think that from my point of view, it's important to know yourself very well. And I think everybody will have issues with their mental health from time to time. As I said, it's a spectrum. It goes from good to bad and everything in between.
Mm.
I think everyone just needs to really understand what their coping mechanisms are. So when they're feeling, for example, a bit anxious, it might be their heart rate increases. It might be they find it difficult to do things. Like my heart rate is currently racing because I'm finding it really nerve wracking being on here with you. I have to kind of like now round that in and think a bit more slowly and control my breathing a bit more. But I think it's a
Mm.
case of it's to always check in with yourself and always check
Mm.
in about how you're feeling. You know, what emotions are you going through each day. For some people, that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And people who have those feelings, I always say to them, write it down. It sounds really silly. I'm not
Mm.
saying write an epic sort of a book, but just write a couple of words each day about how you feel. And then see how it changes each day, each week. And if certain things are making that worse. So, for example, if you're finding that your physiotherapy sessions are really anxiety provoking, you might find that the day you see physio, the words become more extreme or more agitated, or you find that you're sort of finding it hard to do things. And that would be an example of, oh, I find this as a problem, therefore I should do something about that as I go along. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Not
Um,
easy. It's a big question, Jamie, to throw, but
of course, but you answered it very well. Um, from a physio's point of view now, obviously you've had some bad injuries, obviously over the years, and that. Do you feel, from a player's point of view, once they've had a bad injury, they could struggle with mental health, with the injury and the comeback, and not seeing an end of what's going on?
I, yeah, I think every
Yeah,
injury is a little bit different, and every player is a little bit different. But I find that when you get that big injury, and I'm thinking like, you know, your breaks, your ACLs, and perhaps things are even more serious than that, the
yeah,
automatic worry that you come to is, I'm never going to play football again. And I think
mm,
that the problem for a lot of people is that's really important to them. If one of theirs, they've got friends attached to it, they've got happiness and fitness and everything else in between. And also, some people, that's work. You know, if you work as a PE teacher and you break your leg,
yeah,
there's a connotation there that's massive. And I think you tend to catastrophize that this is it, I'm never going to get fit again, and you can't really see the end in sight. I think that's a massive part of injuries. That's a massive part of what physios do, is to try and sort of break it down into little parts. So if
mm,
you've got a bad injury and I run onto the pitch and I'm like, oh my God, this is awful, I've never seen anything so bad in my life, it's going to make that feeling a lot worse, right? So I
yeah,
think at times physios can come across a bit cold, a little bit sort of like always playing things down. But the reason for that is I'm trying to keep them calm as well as me, because I always think, oh my God, this is awful. I don't
yeah,
today. I want to go out and have a drink after the game, but now I'm going to sit in A&E with this player, you know. But
yeah,
actually, I think the long and short of it is that every single player will have a injury of some kind. Now, if somebody never has a bad injury, even an ankle sprain can feel terrible to them. You know, it's all about perspective. So I think it's a case of I say all my players that are injured, I always say the same thing: take it a day at a time. You know, keep track of what you're doing each day, and see if tomorrow you can do a little bit better.
yeah,
You know, that's always the key thing for me, is don't try not to look too far ahead, because especially ACL, when you've got a year of rehab coming up, you know, no one can see a year in advance.
no,
That's the way it works.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been, obviously, I touched on it with George, because obviously I know, and obviously because we're at the same club and that. But from your perspective, obviously being involved with Quay Wanderers, and I know obviously Nathan, Tony Russell, and Joe Vines, do you feel they have this perspective as a manager and a management team,
Yeah.
and you in general, to focus on a player's mental health as well, or struggles going through it,
I think
and not worry just about performance?
I think at Cray we're very blessed. We have a very tight group of players and a very tight group of management. We've been together I don't want to say how long, because it's going to tell my age a little bit, but
Yeah, I know, a very long time. Yeah,
we've
carry
been
on.
together for a long. It's always an entanglement, isn't it?
Mm,
It's getting a little bit complicated at the Cray. We've
mm,
all been together such a long time now that I feel like we know each other quite well.
yeah,
I think for me personally, you cannot get a better manager than Tony Russell. I'll get stick for saying that. But as a manager, he's amazing. And I think that the combination of him with Nath and with Vinesy is that you have a really well-rounded team. Vinesy is incredibly good at mental health management, man management particularly as well. I also go to him and say, like, you know what, I've got a player who's struggling a little bit. Can you have a little chat with him as a man to a man, or whatever that moment might need? So I think that we've got a really good balance at Cray of having sort of a look on performances and look about getting those points on the board, because it is important, Jane. We can't go around and say, you know, we do well as a team, but we'll finish bottom. But my players are all really happy.
Yeah, of course.
The chairman won't like that. So
No.
actually, as a team, we're really good at sort of being connected in with each other, knowing what we're doing. I mean, I've known a lot of these boys for sort of even eight, 9 odd years, some of them. So I think I know them inside out at this point. So you tend to know when somebody's a little bit off. But I think as a group of players, they're very good at talking to each other and sort of meeting up and going on Zoom at the moment and each other sort of in each other's minds. They're a really good. I mean, I can't say it enough. Really, they're a really great team to be involved with. I'm very lucky as a physio, actually, to be honest. I've landed with those guys because they treat me very nicely, and the players too.
Obviously, it's come from another point of view. Obviously, you're now a little bit involved. Obviously, now with obviously SE Dons before COVID shutting down. Do you feel the pressure of them being a massive, obviously, YouTube side on a Sunday could affect them overall with their mental health or performance levels, etc., as well?
That's a big question, Jamie. I think, do you know what? If I'm being wholeheartedly honest, I find being at the Dons nerve-wracking because you've got a camera on you 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to relatively put up, sort of, be a part of the family of the Dons. But I think that's where their strength comes in. They are generally mates. They're generally a massive family, and again, they're a really sound bunch of lads. I've not known them that long. I've not been there that long recently.
Yeah.
The season finished. I didn't manage to sort of see out the season with them. But I can't wait to be with them next year. I think there's a lot of pressure on the Dons to always perform, to always sort of do well. I think a lot of people waiting for them to fall, which is always quite, you know, it's football, it's part of football, but it's quite horrible at times when you watch. They put up a post on their Instagram or on their Twitter, and you just see sort of constant negativity at times. But I think that it's a case that they're so tight and they're so well rounded as players and people. They just bounce off them. I wish I was as resilient as them. I'll be honest, Jamie, because they're a lovely bunch of them. I'm learning a lot about sort of my own confidence and my own something from them, which is a weird way of putting it. That they're teaching me things, and I'm hopefully teaching them things in the long run as well. But yeah, lovely group of boys.
I've got a question, obviously, away from me. I'm going to put it up now. 1 second. It's come up. Players have bad mental health when at home worry about their injuries. What's it like as a physio? See the rest of it. I don't know why.
It sounds like you're just asking how I feel about their injuries and not knowing when they're going to come back.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, that's what I think it is. Yeah.
I think as a physiotherapist, you tend to have a relative idea of when somebody will come back. So as I said, an ACL, you're normally looking at a minimum of 9 to 12 months. You know, leg breaks, normally looking at a minimum of 12. And these things change. I think the same as the physio as it is to the player, it's about taking it a day at a time. I mean, we all get very caught up on when can I play again? And actually, it's not really bad. It's about, for example, for crutches, when can I walk back crutches? You know, okay, I can walk back crutches now. When can I jog? When can I have a ball at my feet again? And when can I stand on one leg and balance? You know, when can I get my squat really good so that way my hips are strong? It's about being little mini markers. So you've got your long-term goal of return to play, and you've got the short-term goals of going that. I'll be honest, Jamie, since we're in this kind of topic now, that when I get a bad injury, I feel horrible, you know, when I go home. And nothing worse than, I mean, relatively speaking, my only goal when I go to football is to have 11 players enter the pitch on my side well, and 11 players leave that pitch well as well. Obviously allowing for subs in the other team. But all I really want at the end of the day is not to be sitting on any of my players. I thought a bit too much last season, but that's how it is some days. And I think that as a physiotherapist, nothing worse than having a player sitting next to you on the bench because they're injured. And it plays on your mind. It makes you think, am I doing my job well enough? You know, am I working hard enough for that player? It's just a case of always being patient and always trying to look for those little tiny markers and always try to be positive about an injury. There's always a positive element to an injury. You know, if you sprained an ankle, you can come back and you can be stronger, so you won't do it again. Yeah. Positivity. I mean, I'm horribly positive at Cray. I think I get on their nerves at times.
Yeah.
bright side of an injury. But, it's hard some days. You know, you don't want to sort of scream when they get hurt, but it's about trying to find what the next step is to get better. If that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah.
Orange Ball Coaching said, you're describing a real positive culture. How might another club go about creating it for themselves?
I think it's always difficult. It's just, I mean, everyone's always got a bare bones. So players should always have a relative amount of knowing each other. I'm not saying they're best mates, but that's where you can sort of get like your team bonding activities going. Mixing up the groups at training is really helpful too. So if you've got, like, for example, if all the old players get together and the young ones get together separately, try and mix them up a little bit, get a bit of bonding. I think also it's the other girls all said it as well. It's about listening, but actively listening. So rather than just sort of sitting there and going, yeah, I kind of get it, and ignoring what they've said, sort of try and make sure you make an effort just to get to know each other and know how you all feel. So you've all got the good news in football is, like with any team sport or any team generally, is that you've got a joint goal, and that is normally to win a football match.
Yeah.
Right? Normally, it might be to draw some days, who knows? But or West Ham, I'm a West Ham fan. It's currently to just not lose. A good start, but I think it's just a case of it takes time. That you can't just click your fingers and it works suddenly.
Yeah.
It's to sort of gently sort of get a relationship with each player, for managers to sort of trust their players, and players to trust their managers. It's massive, really. Yeah, so you haven't all got your best mates. I mean, I know I'm describing credit like we're all best mates, but generally it's a really positive changing room. But they've been together from us since we were at BCD together.
Yeah.
You can't manufacture that. They're generally
No, you can't.
No.
What's your thought, obviously, away from football now and going into maybe an educational side? Do you feel that it should be taught in the curriculum or caught lower down at a younger age to help with mental health awareness, or if somebody is struggling with it, they can help going forward so it doesn't go on for years and years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're finding it a lot more now. I mean, I've said my interest work drips into it a little bit, and that is that people who are younger are experiencing more problems with sort of having issues with their own mental health, particularly anxiety and depression.
Yeah,
massive in schools at the minute. And I think it's about us just really normalising that conversation. So you understand that everyone's, like, for example, if you've got an exam coming up, everyone in that room probably feels a bit anxious, varying degrees, but everyone probably feels a bit nervous about what their future might hold, which is really understandable. And you're allowed to feel anxious about that, Jamie. You're allowed to do it. It's probably a positive thing to be a little bit up for doing something. Anxiety helps in that respect.
Yeah.
I think it's about us, all of us, having that really normal conversation. Because families with their children, it's not just about schools. It's about sort of if you've got younger people in your life, or for example, my friends, I haven't got any children, my friends have got children. It's about having that certain, and they're okay, and normalising that. I'm lucky I come from a family where we're very good at talking. We're very good at having that chat, being very open to each other. And I think it's important to keep that conversation about, you know what, it's normal to feel a bit worried, to be a bit sad, to be a bit happy. But this is how you deal with it in the long term. Because kids, your hormones are running everywhere. They're never going to feel on an even keel. That's just the way it is growing up, you know. It's about managing those and giving them coping strategies and resilience to go, okay, I feel bad today, but I haven't got to feel bad tomorrow or next week. And this is how I come out of that feeling. It's a really hard one because it's hard to teach it. But it's essentially about, and the same with young footballers, it's about resilience and about coping. You know, if you play football because you lose, then you've got a problem on your hand. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, 100%.
You're going to lose a game every now and again.
Yeah, of course.
Unless you're Tony Russell, in which case you can probably never in a day.
No. Last question before, obviously, I go on to Ems. It's the same as the other one. Other questions, and the last question is, if you're struggling for mental health, what you feel people can do to help themselves. Also, if you're around if you're struggling with mental health, what you can do to help yourself. Also, if you know of somebody who's got mental health, and how we can help going forward with mental health, basically, and your thoughts on it.
I think the first question around if you feel that you're struggling, what you can do, I think as much as you can try and talk about it. Try and find someone who will listen. It might not be the first person you go to, it might be the third, but don't stop having that conversation. I think it's similar to other guys. I'm happy to talk about with people, but it's not always great from a stranger or somebody you don't know very well. But I'm always happy to chat through things as needed. So I think keep talking and sort of keep hope if you can as well. You know, everyone's got their amazing points to them, and I think it's important to remember that you'll do okay. Just need a bit of time sometimes to get over what you're going through, and people can help you get through that as they go. I think in terms of how people can generally help people, I've said it before. It's all about listening, but equally, it's about, you know, we've all done it. We've all reached out to somebody and not been very helpful. I
Yeah.
think it's supposed to be empathetic and thinking that was me reaching out. What would I like to say said to me? And
Yeah.
you know, saying, for example, I hate this term, but man up is never
No.
a good way of doing it. Even as a banter, it's not a great way of doing it. It's really damaging. So I think it's a case of learning that if you're going to ask somebody how they are, Jamie, be
Yeah.
prepared to get an answer back.
100%. Yeah.
Prepare to answer that negativity with help, basically. It might mean passing them on a phone number and saying, you know what, I know this physio called Ali. She's happy to talk to you. Give her a ring.
Yeah.
Or equally, here's a Samaritan's line. Whatever it might be that helps you at that moment. Yeah, I think
100%.
also just be kind, be nice, think through what you're saying. You know.
No, definitely, Ali. Ali, thank you very much for coming on.
Okay.
Really good talking to you. Great views and obviously experiences of how you feel about mental health. And thank you for sharing them.
Good luck, Ems.
Cheers, Ali. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye bye. So that was Ali. What I'm going to do now, Ems, and everyone in here, if you can come back in 2 minutes, because I'm coming up to the hour. Frankie, thank you very much. Great interview. Yeah, 100%. Everyone come back in 2 minutes, and then we get Ems on. Really looking forward to this one. It cuts off after an hour, so I need to obviously come off and come back on. But I'll literally be back in 2 minutes. Speak to you then.